Hello everyone, I'm Mason, and today we will once again be reaching into the world of Dungeons & Dragons. For those of you who don't know much about Dungeons & Dragons, I'll refer you to the previous video that I posted on this channel through the link in the description as well as the annotated link here. In that video, I talk about the different steps in creating a D&D character, so if you want to check that out, be sure to click that link. Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D, is commonly played with a group of several players, preferably 3 or more, as well as the one person who keeps the entire game rolling, the Dungeon Master, or DM. The DM has total control over the world that the players play in, write the story, play different characters and monsters that the players meet, and guide the adventuring party throughout the world they've created. It's a form of collaborative storytelling that has captivated audiences for almost 40 years, and has allowed budding storytellers to express themselves in ways that they never could before. I myself have been in both positions, playing as both a normal player who creates a character to play a part in the DM's story, and playing as the DM himself, where I create an entire storyline and world for my players to live in, adventure in, and populate. Creating an entire world from scratch does sound like a daunting task at first, but that's what I aim to disprove. Today, I'm going to be showing you some basic tips and tricks on world building within D&D for any first-time Dungeon Masters who might be needing some help. Your first step in creating a world in Dungeons & Dragons is picking a theme. Now, when someone mentions D&D, everyone's first thought is immediately something like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, with things like elves, castles, knights, dragons, wizards, that sort of thing. And that is one of the more vanilla and familiar settings to have a campaign take place in. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes DMs might want a little more zest or flavor to spice up their world for their players. Fear not. That's where this first step comes in. We have a theme that everyone's familiar with, which is known as high fantasy in terms of genres. But what if we do something a little more unexpected, like setting our campaign in modern times? Wizards who are also office workers, knights who are police officers, dragons perching over skyscrapers. Stuff like this, known as urban fantasy, is rampant in book series like Harry Potter, The Mortal Instruments, and Percy Jackson. This is a theme that has been used in plenty of campaigns before, and offers a ton of opportunities for customization and flavoring to spice up your campaign. Or how about something like a D&D campaign set in space? A sci-fi theme is the best of both worlds of fantasy, and can lead to some crazy combinations in terms of creatures and storylines. However, for this video, since we need a more definitive example, let's use something I've been working on. As a DM, I'm always constantly working on my next project, and this one I'm currently in the process of creating is titled Goblins and Gunslingers, Tales from the Wastelands. This is a D&D 5th edition campaign set within a fictional version of the Wild West. Already, as you can probably guess, a million images are flooding into your head, and that's really all it takes. A single idea can get all of your creative juices flowing. Once you have a theme, you can get started easily. So, you've got an idea for your world. You have a faint inkling of how you want things to work within it, but you haven't settled on anything yet. Before you can start playing around in your new sandbox, you need to figure out what the rules and overall story of this world should be. Every great fantasy world has a rich and vibrant backstory, and yours shouldn't be any different. Now, yours doesn't have to be as detailed as something like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, with literal thousands of years of history, although if you want to, you totally can. When you start off with building your world's lore, focus on what is only immediately important to your characters and the main plot of your campaign. Remember, it doesn't matter unless it's part of the story. History is also a big part of establishing the rules and lore of your campaign's world. With it, you can explain to the players why certain things can happen, and some things are the way they are without having to explicitly tell them. It's important to keep things like this, so your players are always immersed and feel like they're part of the world, without them having to constantly break character to ask you questions. Things such as magical systems, if there are any, available races and classes to play as, things such as certain monsters and natural conditions like weather and land, as well as languages and how much your players' characters should know in terms of immediate history, are important to think about. For example, in my campaign, I've based most of it off of actual history, and slightly flavored it to have a more D&D feel. The taming of the West back in the 19th century is certainly a fascinating subject on its own, and can provide a lot of opportunities to fill in the blanks about certain things you're not sure of. Magic systems can be especially tricky to figure out. Sure, it is possible to just say, magic exists, deal with it, and have that be the end of it, But if you want to go that extra mile, take some time to think about how magic could fit in with your setting. For instance, I decided that in my Wild West setting, magic is like a mineral or essence that can be collected by mining or drilling into the ground, similar to gold or oil, which mirrors the gold rush of that era. Perfect for the setting, and explains how magic can exist in the world. Sometimes it's just that easy. Parts of your story or overall aesthetic that you want for your world can lend you some easy parts to add to your history. If your story takes place in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, you can easily think about what caused that apocalypse. Zombie virus, nuclear explosion, a world war. Perhaps you want the world to be ruled over by a certain species or organization. How did that organization rise to power? Are they good? Bad? All of these things are easy ways to work backwards with and create a rich history that your players will be able to immerse themselves within. One other good tactic that I personally recommend is to have what we in the business call a DM Bible. Essentially, it's a notebook, Google Doc, or maybe just a few scraps of paper, if you like that sort of thing, that tells the story of your world. Have all of your notes on lore and history, as well as any set rules and ideas you have for it. Keeping all of your notes organized in something like that can be really helpful in the long run. Whether you need to consult something during a session, or perhaps one of your players mentions something interesting that you want to change on the fly or add to come into play later, having a DM Bible can be the key to keeping a successful world and campaign on track. So, you have a setting with a theme, a history full of different ideas and settings, a set of rules for every person in your world to follow, and a basic plot to place in. What else is there to do? Well, what we've done so far is essentially make the basic skeleton of a world. And all we need to do is fill in all of the fleshy bits to have a full person. Trust me, it's a lot less weird than it sounds, so just stay with me. With your history, you should already have some idea of the different species you want in your world, and also keep in mind what kind of races and classes your players will be playing as also. Your players are a part of this world too, and it's important to try and work with them to incorporate their characters into the story, rather than have them change their ideas to fit in with yours. Remember, it's all of your stories, not just yours. You may control the world and tell the story, but the players are the ones supposed to be having an adventure and going through an interesting story. So it's important to make them feel like they matter, and they are important. Species and classes can easily be figured out thanks to your history, as well as what your players wish to play as, and they can also assist with your main plot and lore with their backstories. Incorporating a player's backstory into your world is incredibly helpful in immersing your players, as well as providing great opportunities for storylines and plot points. Your player will feel like they have an anchor in this world, that they've been a part of it for years, and will seem less out of place in a fantasy setting. Once you've incorporated your players into your plot and world, it's time to focus on the little things. Random things like currency, slang terms, food, flora, and fauna can play a big part in immersing your players in the world, and giving it an identity that will make them want to keep coming back to play. Making something like a map or some handouts that would be in your world can stand out amongst other DMs. The look and feel of your world should be your own, and should be something that fits in with the overall aesthetic of your plot, and its history. It's something little that always goes a long way. Taking inspiration from other forms of media can be helpful too. Every single one of my campaigns has at least one reference or set piece taken from a book, movie, video game, or anime. Obviously, there's a point where you shouldn't try to steal too much. Your campaign shouldn't be called Lord of the Bracelets, about a group of short people trying to stop the evil Lord Sauron from taking over the world. Influencing and taking inspiration should be done in short amounts, and is always something that can add a little extra punch to your campaign. Dungeons & Dragons is an infinitely customizable game, and no two campaigns are ever alike in terms of story, world, and characters. Whether you're someone who's just stepping into the world of TTRPGs, or if you're a veteran DM who's looking for some new ideas for their next campaign, I hope this video helped you out at least a little bit. Creating a world shouldn't be something that you're afraid of doing. If you're as creative and as enthusiastic about this game as I am, world building should instead be seen as the next big challenge. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Tune in next week to see our upcoming videos on The Sims, and be sure to check out our channel for our previous videos, as well as make sure to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when our next video comes up. Until next time, keep rolling, adventurers.